Thank you so much for joining us today. All right. On behalf of the team at BGI, we welcome you. We are very excited and happy to see you all here today. As you may know, some of you may know, BGI is a freight forwarder that provides end-to-end supply chain solutions around the globe. We can deliver by ocean, by air, truck, and everything in between. We have a fantastic team of people who care about making your life easier, saving time and money. I want to offer today, before we start, a special thanks to Bruce and Gabe. They are BGI's funders for organizing this webinar and offering BGI's clients valuable information. Actually, this year we are celebrating 25 years of BGI. Way to go. Our first speaker today is Karen Kenney. She serves as an advisor at BGI, supporting the team in the development and delivering of best-in-class solutions for BGI's clients. Most recently, she served as a president of a public global logistics service provider, and she's held positions across the supply chain for more than 35 years. Our second speaker today is Matthew, who is a licensed customs broker. He is the managing partner at Buck Trade Law, where his practice is dedicated exclusively to customs and international trade law for import, export controls, and economical sanctions. I am Ana Arango, Global Account Manager with 10 years of experience. I have supporting our clients with a broad number of end-to-end supply chain solutions that have saved time, money, and reduced risk. With this brief intro, let's dive into the good stuff. We are here today with these experts who will share their impressions, some information about the current market conditions, and what we can expect will happen regarding the tariff situation. Karen, let's get started.
All right. Thanks, Anna. Appreciate it. And special thanks to Matt for joining us here today. My partner in crime in this presentation today. We have some good stuff to share. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank Bruce and Gabe and the team at BGI for giving us this opportunity, and also to commend them because I think it's really great that they're helping out their clients. I think this is a little unique in the industry. They've been doing a lot of work to help clients set up ACE accounts and make sure that their refunds are teed up when this whole process gets kickstarted. So with that, I am going to share our presentation here, and we will share a recording of the event and share the presentation after as well. Okay, here we go. Let's just dive in here. We're going to get just kick-started by talking about what qualifies for an IEEPA refund. So, Matt, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. And thanks to BGI, although my intro had me as a licensed customs broker, which I am, I'm not a practicing broker. I would encourage all of you to reach out to folks like BGI if you have legitimate customs broker questions. So as for what qualifies for a refund, so any tariff enacted under the authority of IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, was deemed to be invalid by the Supreme Court. And so all of those tariffs, IEEPA-based tariffs, would be eligible for refunds. That would include the initial round dating back to February of fentanyl tariffs on Mexico, China, and Canada. And of course, that would also include the reciprocal tariffs enacted in April and August globally. So the first initial 10% round and then the raise based on this table that you can see in the middle here. And that would also include, of course, additional supplementary IEEPA tariffs that we saw issued against countries like Brazil and India. Brazil for mainly political reasons, frankly, and India for its reliance on or purchases of Russian origin oil. So all of those four buckets are essentially declared invalid and eligible for a refund.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think it's important to just regroup on this because sometimes folks are confused, right, about which tariffs are refundable and not. And once you export your list of entries from ACE, it's important to whittle that down, right, to just the lines on which you paid these IEEPA duties. And there's almost 200
Yeah, that's right.
tariff codes for these now. And we can share a list of those with you. And some of them are combined. We'll talk about that later, right? Like the EU, Japan, Korea, where a line item a tariff code may include the base duty as well. But we'll talk about that on the next slide.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's difficult to apply a formulaic approach here. It's going to require looking at ACE reports and going line by line to verify the actual, aggregate IEEPA tariff paid. So just as importantly, what does not qualify for our IEEPA refunds, or put differently, what was not premised upon the authority of IEEPA? And actually, I think we made a mistake on this first bucket here should be Section 232 tariff. So anything
Yes.
under Section 232, Section 301, these tariffs are premised on a different authority, the Trade Agreements Act. And these are specific sections of that act. These tariffs, while there have been some challenges, legal challenges to 301 and 232, those so far have not really gone very far. And so there's really no expectation in the near-term future that anything under Section 301 or Section 232 would be eligible for a refund or declared invalid. And as a reminder, Section 301 tariffs are the tariffs that came in during the first Trump administration. These came out in tranches. There are still tranches that are active. Tranches 1, 2, 3 are at 25%, and tranche 4 is currently at 7.5%. So if you're importing from China, you likely are subject to a 301 tariff and have been for a long time. That has not been declared invalid. That is still in play. Section 232 tariffs, these are the tariffs that apply to things like steel, aluminum, copper, passenger vehicles, furniture, lumber, semiconductors. These are also very much still alive. There's a case pending at the CIT around the proper calculation of the metal content value. But the authority itself has not really been contested, and I don't think we're going to see a contest of that authority. And in fact, and I'm sure Karen will join me on saying this, we're going to talk about Section 122 in a second, but once the 122 authority expires, we're all expecting that Section 301 and 232 will have been expanded by that period. So these are certainly very much still in play and not eligible for refund. This bottom left bucket that says base duty, this is the most favored nation duty that has applied to your products historically and will continue to apply historically, right? This is not a tariff per se, it's a duty rate that applies based on the classification of your article. And similarly, all the way on the right, anti-dumping and countervailing duties. These are not tied to a tariff authority. They're not being contested and would not be eligible for a refund.
Yeah, and thanks for catching our typo. Matt, we'll get that. That was mine, by the way. I'll get that corrected before we get this out to everyone. These are the Section 232s, and I agree completely. I think, after July 24th, when Section 122 expires, we will see more Section 301 tariffs, and probably shortly thereafter, more of these Section 232 tariffs as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more on future slides.
Yeah, so once you essentially have defined, as Karen said, your starting point here, and we'll get back to this. Starting point here should be pulling ACE entry data or having your broker pull ACE entry data for you, identifying the universe of entries on which IEEPA tariffs may have applied. And from there, the next step will be segregating that data into these buckets. And these buckets will essentially define your immediate and maybe long-term strategy for a refund. So any entries that are unliquidated, meaning that have not gone to full-term liquidation, which would happen at 314 days after entry, or that were not liquidated because of some action by you, the importer, or CBP, which could be, fixing a classification issue, fixing a valuation issue. Any of those fixes actually usually tend to advance liquidation. So you would want to quickly identify and segregate your data, figure out which entries have liquidated and which have not. entries that have liquidated or that have not liquidated, there's really no immediate remedy available right now. Post-summary corrections are not an option for IEEPA tariffs on unliquidated entries at this stage. And so what you kind of have to do on those is sit tight. We'll talk about this more in other slides, but CBP is in the process of establishing a system by which you can submit for refunds on unliquidated entries. And so that's essentially the primary action at this stage for unliquidated entries. For entries that have liquidated, there likely still will also be a CAPE or CBP submission portal option there. But you also have a secondary option, and many importers are pursuing both opportunities, right? So entries that have liquidated but that have not finally liquidated, meaning their 180 days have not elapsed between the date of liquidation and today's date. You can file a protest to request a refund of the IEEPA tariffs paid on those liquidated entries. And while many may say, well, this CAPE process is intended to cover liquidated and unliquidated, the goal of the protest at this stage would be to preserve your refund right if by chance the submission process is not rolled out properly, takes longer than the 180-day period or whatever period is remaining for your entries to be established. And so it gives you the safety net of having a protest filed that would preserve and keep that entry unliquidated or unfinally liquidated. Even if ultimately it is resolved, the refund is resolved through a CAPE submission process, the protest establishes an opportunity to avoid final liquidation of those entries. For entries that have finally liquidated, meaning you got to liquidation either at 314 or otherwise, and then you went another 180 days after that. At this stage, the submission process that CBP is putting in place does not appear, at least right now, designed for finally liquidated entries. That may change. And so at this stage, the only real remedy, if you wanted to take one, would be to file a lawsuit at the CIT, the Court of International Trade. There are varying opinions on these suits. A lot of the responses from the CIT and CBP to these suits has been to say, don't worry, all importers will be eligible for refunds. Final liquidation will not be a bar towards recovery. But we've seen many importers continue to file these suits anyways, perhaps just for peace of mind. In all honesty, I can't tell you exactly what the right answer is ultimately. It may be the case that a CIT lawsuit does give you some peace of mind and some preservation or protection. It may be the case that it's redundant, but it is an opportunity for finally liquidated entries at this stage. This fourth bucket is kind of covered in the prior discussion, right? But if you've protested your IEEPA tariffs already, then that essentially final liquidation is suspended for the time being, and so you likely then have an opportunity to leverage CAPE and file for a refund there through. Anything you want to add here, Karen?
Yeah, I would just say we can't emphasize enough how important it is, right, to get your arms around this. So this is why you need to have an ACE account. You need to export the data. Then you need to whittle that data down to those IEEPA tariff codes we talked about in the first slide and know what the liquidation status is. File a protest if you're nearing that 180-day mark. So you reserve your right to a smoother refund process than you otherwise might have. I think it's important to think about potentially filing the lawsuit if your entry's gone beyond that 180-day mark. But I think Matthew and I agree that there may be some other process that may come out of this eventually. We don't think that the CIT is going to want to hear tens of thousands of lawsuits, which they ultimately might have. But the safest bet, I think experts say, is to file that lawsuit.
Yeah.
Now you have 2 years from the date of injury to file suit, though, right, Matthew? Which would bring us to 2027.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point. Ultimately, if you wanted to take the full belt and suspenders approach, it would be prepare for CAPE submissions, file protests on all liquidated but not finally liquidated entries, and file a suit at the CID for an individual stipulation related to your entries. But that's exactly right. You would have till 2027, give or take some months based on the liquidation dates, to prepare and file that suit. Though I would say,
Basically,
if the goal is to file a suit, there's really no reason to wait that long at this stage. But
but you could do a wait and see approach, right?
of
See if
course,
there's,
yeah,
you didn't want the expense and the work behind it. You could wait to see what's going to happen with that last bucket of entries or this bucket of entries right here.
yeah. I mean, I agree. We'll talk more about Cape, right? But CBP thinks this will be live mid-April. I think it might take a little longer than that, but certainly not till 2027, right? So you
Right.
could indeed, assuming you look at all your entries and you have some runway before final liquidation, you could take a pause and see where this goes by mid-April before deciding whether to do protests also, and whether to consider a CIT suit on top of that.
And we have a question here, Matt, how will CAPE filing work for entries where we have claim duty drawback? And that's this last bucket, right? So CBP has already said that drawback, anti-dumping and countervailing duty entries and some other more complex entries will not be part of the phase one of refunds. That will be dealt with in future phases. So essentially the answer to your question is we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Right?
And that goes back to the idea of, if you're talking about entries that fall in that bucket that are liquidated and approaching final liquidation, I would encourage you to get a protest filed to sort of preserve that right while we figure out the CAPE submission for those complex entries.
Great. And we're gonna, if we have time at the end, we'll talk a little bit more about reconciliation, FTZ, and other entry types as well. So here we are at the CAPE system, Matt.
Yeah. So again, the Supreme Court made their decision. They told the CID to figure out how to compel CBP to issue refunds. CIT just issued this order on March 4th saying, all right, you have to liquidate and reliquidate without IEEPA. CBP came back and said, we'd love to, but listen, there are 50 million entries, hundreds of thousands of importers of record. We cannot just proceed in a non-orderly fashion. And so the orderly fashion that they came up with was this CAPE submission process. It's going to be a bolt-on or an optionality within ACE. So again, I think we've said this several times. We're going to hammer it home all day. You need to get access to your ACE account. It's going to be not only the way to figure out what data you're working with, but also likely the way you actually submit via CAPE. So once CAPE is live, which again we think CBP thinks mid-April, we'll see. You would go in there, you would submit your claim through the ACE portal. CBP would then, they're calling it mass processing, but they would essentially run, likely using AI and analytics, data verification exercise against your data to confirm that the amount of tariffs that you're requesting refunds on aligns with the amount of tariffs paid and matches up with your data values, et cetera. They would remove IEEPA tariffs and recalculate the duties, and any delta would be refunded to you, the importer, via an ACH refund. And again, I don't know if we talked about that yet or if we will. In addition to getting into ACE, you need to set yourself up for an ACH or electronic refund in ACE. That's going to be the only way to get the eventual refund that is coming to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was
No,
just
no,
going to add, and the refund will be paid with interest.
That's right.
So tracking these won't be super easy. The only way to track them too will be through ACE. So you need to have your ACH refund account set up, and then you're going to want to set up some automated refund reports for you and your finance team. Your finance team may have some tax challenges on their hand as well, right? When these monies flow back in, the monies may be received back in a different fiscal year than they were originally paid. So essentially, you want to be ready. We don't know. We think there'll be some delays in the system being available. As Matt said, probably not in April. We don't know when it will be ready. And we also don't know what order these will be processed in. Will it be first in, first out? What I would say is you want to be ready on day one, right? You want to have your ACE account set up. You want to have your ACE report ready. Presumably, this will be a CSV file. CBP's indicated you likely won't need to be uploading entry packages or a lot of extra data, right? This may be as simple as an ACE generated spreadsheet, but you want to be ready as soon as the portal opens to file for your refund. That would be my advice.
Yeah, absolutely agree. One quick note on interest, because I've had a lot of clients misunderstand this, right? Interest runs from the date of submission of the entry, and so there have been a lot of pitches around, service providers wanting to help and genuinely helping, but saying, don't worry, our fees will come out of X percent. There's not going to be a flat 7% or a flat 5% or whatever based on the aggregate amount of IEEPA tariffs paid. It's interest that runs from the date of entry, and therefore, for each entry, based on how long the entry's been open, you're going to have widely varying rates of interest apply once these are finally liquidated. So just keep that in mind. If the idea is that you're going to get a flat 7% on top of your scheduled refund, that's not the case.
Correct. It will be the published rates at the time of entry across the lifespan of that entry until now. To answer a question in chat, and Holger's asking, is the CAPE processing ACE already active? It is not yet
No.
active. But there will presumably be a new option there for you once they've got it up and running.
Yeah,
And
CIT is doing a good job of keeping CBP on track. CBP is indicating for each of these four stages how far along they are. In most cases, they're allegedly more than 50% of the way there, but we'll see where they end up.
There's another question here. What information needs to be provided in the CSV? Is it the ES3 report from the ACE portal? The answer to that is we don't know yet. CBP has not told us yet. But based on their filings with the CIT, it seems possibly it will be as simple as just a list of entry numbers. But we don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they intend to do their own background verification exercise anyways, and so they might not want importers to submit much more data than just the entries, but we'll see.
All right. And I think we're about to have an answer to Adriana's question here on the next slide, non-resident importers, Matt.
Yeah, right. I mean, the operating principle for who can go for a refund is are you an import of record? And so that would apply to domestic and non-resident importers of record. In this case, CBP does want you to have a U.S. bank account, though. So either you would have to set one up or work through a U.S. party or subsidiary to do that, and use that U.S. bank account for refund purposes. So absolutely. And I think we talk about this in the next slide, but we had a wave of suppliers switch to DDP models to assist their U.S. customers in managing the impact of the tariffs. And so all of those new parties who historically were not importers of record but became importers of record, whether they're non-resident or not, they're absolutely eligible for this process as well.
And the folks at BGI can help. So if you have a non-resident importer partner that paid tariffs, we can put together a solution for you. You can just reach out to Anna or any member of the BGI team, and they can assist. We have a question, will Kate be available in our ACE account even if we do not have protest filer access? And the answer is, I believe so. We don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain it will be available to every importer.
I agree.
Um,
I know we're going to talk about carriers, but I wanted to make the point again. We're saying that the operating principle here is you have to be an import of record. In many cases, there was a sharing of the tariff burden, right? Suppliers who were not importers of record made concessions. Customers in the United States who are not importers of record accepted surcharges or price increases. Neither of those two parties, right, suppliers or customers who were not importers of record, have the right to go for a refund. But certainly there's a lot of background legal or contractual remedies that you could potentially pursue to both compel the importer record that you worked with to go get a refund and to compel them to share in the refund they eventually get, right? But that's a different conversation. But there are potentially remedies there for non-importer record tariff stakeholders.
and you just mentioned couriers, Matt.
Yeah, similar exercise, right? Operating principle is import of record. In many cases, some of these couriers, and even big box, FedEx, DHL, UPS, um, um, rely on their own import of record and own bonds to streamline entry on behalf of customers. They are the parties that would have the immediate right to do this. And so, like with that other conversation around suppliers and customers, there's going to need to be an exercise where you work with your courier to get an accounting of everything that they paid, to compel them to go and pursue refunds on your behalf or on their behalf, and to compel them to make sure that they properly allocate any surcharge that they pass on to you. Or in this case, they probably would have, given you the whole amount. But any refund that they get is eventually passed on to you, and interest, right? If they're getting an interest payment on their refunds, that interest is owed to you as well from a, equity perspective.
Great point, Matt. Yeah. I think, now's the time to put this data together, right? So you're ready, and you
Yeah,
make sure none are missed. And for some shipments through these couriers, you are the importer of record. So if you are the importer of record, this will appear on your ACE report when you export the data from ACE. That's why you want to go to ACE versus just a broker report. If you're working with multiple brokers, all of your data is in ACE in one place, and you shouldn't miss any. Um,
that's right.
okay. So what should you do to get ready?
Yeah. So I think we probably touched on all six of these, but let's go
Right.
back through them because it is critical, right?
Yep.
Sign up for your free ACE portal. If you need guidance on this, talk to BGI or talk to other service providers that you work with. Um, um, we have heard from clients and customers that there are some challenges to getting into ACE at this stage. The system is so overwhelmed with new applicants. As of a couple weeks ago, CBP was saying that less than 20% of importers are on ACE. So there is a wave of people doing this. So again, this is something you should start today. Because it's the only way to get completely accurate data of what you entered and paid. B, because it's likely the place in which you will actually file for a refund and will get that refund. So once you're in ACE, sign up for ACH refund. Again, that's the only permissible means of CBP refunding IEEPA tariffs. Use the reports function within ACE to generate the necessary reports. This is a bit cumbersome, and so again, talk to BGI or talk to Karen or myself. We can likely help you to identify the right reports and how to pull them. Once you have the data, segment by buckets and develop a strategy to attack each bucket accordingly. The liquidation dates and the entry dates are necessarily the data points that will drive your segmentation or bucketization and strategy. Make sure you're pulling the right reports and have the right liquidation information.
I'm going to use that word, Matt. I like that bucketization.
All
I think you just we're going to add that to the dictionary this year.
right.
I like it.
Um,
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that BGI has training tools for each one of these buckets with screen snapshots to show you how to generate these reports out of ACE.
Perfect.
And they also are providing one-on-one help screen share sessions if you're not able to get this done. Matt, I think you made the point, right? It's important to sign up and do this stuff in an automated way because going through the ACE help desk has been problematic,
Very.
right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to be waiting in line for your ACE account, to your point,
Yeah.
Matt, and the Cape refund portal is already open.
Yeah, and even on that same point, I mean, I don't know if you've seen this too, Karen, but even filing protests now, it sometimes takes 20 attempts to log into ACE for me to get into a protest filer account, right? So, you know, don't wait until the day before CAPE is live to try and pull this off. The setup should be done quickly for a number of reasons.
Um, the other thing that I think is important, since this is all automated now, if you have given ACE access to employees that are no longer with your company, make sure that you remove them, right? Because this whole thing is ripe for having issues,
Yes, yes, right.
fraud, right? So And make sure you keep track of that ACH refund account that you set up. Check it periodically, make sure the data in there is accurate. And you're going to want to be confirming that you're receiving refunds, because this is a big undertaking for CBP, and them kind of keeping track of this could be problematic. So we are up against time at this point. Let's see, in
We
case,
maybe speed touch on 122. Let's see.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, so we sort of touched on this right at the get-go that, just because IEEPA's gone doesn't mean other tariffs are gone. And among the tariffs that aren't gone, Section 122, which again is not an IEEPA authority, it's a well-established authority. On February 24th, IEEPA went away. Section 122 came into place. It started at 10%, and this is comprehensive, right? It's not jurisdiction by jurisdiction. It applies.
Whoops, I don't know. I think maybe we lost Matthew there. I'm just going to continue on with section 122. So the 122 is in place. A member of the administration just came out recently and said they were increasing the section one, the 10% to 15%. We don't know for sure if that's going to happen. But this 122 is in place through the end of July. And as we mentioned previously, we'll likely have these 301 cases that could be in place. We don't know what the tariff rate is or when, or what products will be included, whether there will be exclusion processes. But these will likely be in place when the Section 122 tariffs expire in July. I think we can anticipate those coming forward. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Anna to close us out. We are keeping track of all of your questions here. And if we don't answer them right now, we will certainly get a message out to you to answer your questions later.
Thank you very much, Karen, Matthew. This was a great discussion today. Thank you for sharing time with us today and valuable information. We hope you find the information that we shared with you guys today very helpful. We will be sending a recording of today's webinar via email, and we are happy to follow up with any questions that you may have. We hope you remember our team at BGI is here to help you as much as possible, and thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, Anna. And
Thanks, everyone.
remember, if you have questions, thank you, Matthew. If you have questions, make sure you reach out to us. We're happy to answer them. We're happy to share the training tools and any other information that might help you get the refunds you have coming to you. That's what's most important.
That's right. We are here to help. Feel free to reach out.
Have a great afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
Great afternoon. Thank you
Thanks,
very
all.
much.